You are tuned into the Power Chord Hour, and I'm your host, Anthony Merchant here. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the show. Very excited today. I'm talking to Danny and David of the Los Angeles band No WIN. Very excited to be talking to them. Their sophomore record, Dodger Stadium, will be coming out August 19th on Danger Bird Records. I've been playing the enhanced CD lately on the radio show, so you've probably heard some of these songs, and I'm excited to hear the rest of it. We're going to talk about the new record, talk about No WIN, and all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Danny, David, how you both doing?
Doing very good.
Pretty good.
Thank you for having us.
We love it.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I got turned on to the band, and I guess it would have been your debut, Downey, in 2019. I really enjoyed that one. Was stoked to see there was a new one coming. Like, when was the writing for this new record? When did that happen after the last one? Like, how long was Downey out? Where you're like, all right, time for a new No WIN record. How long has this one been in the works?
That's a good question. It's so hard to remember. Downey came out in March of 2019. So we got like 1 year of having a record out before everything came to a screeching halt. And I feel like, I don't remember, were we writing any of this before? We started in pandemic. Because me, you, and Jeff, I feel like we started a little bit before.
We started a little bit before,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you had like a few demos piled up.
Yeah.
And we just started working on the songs, and it just kind of naturally rolled from there.
Yeah.
You know?
And especially having like touring and shows and anything else possible taken away from us. It was like, once we were like home indefinitely, it's like, all right, well, and this is this record, as opposed to the first one, was written a lot more collaboratively. Like Jeff, who played drums on Downey, Jeff, David, and I would get together and like go through either ideas I had or fresh ideas we all came up with together and just write the songs together, like the three of us. So we were just doing that as often as we could, trying to get to a second record since we couldn't really do anything else.
It makes sense. Was there anything from down, or like, you know, like ideas that kind of started on that first record that made its way over to this one? Even like ideas, even if not full songs. Anything?
I don't know.
Record.
I'm gonna say no.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna say no. We kind of like put our all into that. Had a couple like B-side releases, you know, from it.
Yeah.
And then approach it like when Danny had the demos for this one, they were so severely like different than Downey, you know, which was like really exciting to hear. And plus, when we started writing it, we were like, it was the very beginning of the pandemic. So me and Danny created our bubble here and just kept on going, you know, which was really interesting because we didn't have a drummer in tow. So like a lot of the drums on the record are like these loops and stuff, right? Because we were just kind of working with what we had, and it kind of like informed the direction of where we wanted to go, you know? And also like not having people to tell us like things were bad ideas. We just went with the really bad ideas, and kind of like, it was a fun time to see where we could take things without even being like maybe we won't even put this out. It was like the world was sort of like on fire, and we were like, what if we just stayed here and like had fun every day and like wrote these really like lighthearted songs, like as a knee-jerk reaction to like, you know, the news cycle and everything that was going on. Like, let's talk about summer, and like, you know, and it was sort of like this wonderful kind of like experience to be in that world and not in the world of like sitting at home and watching the computer, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's much more productive. You wrote a good record. I feel like you can say you came out of it with that. Like that's you got a pretty solid record out of it. You could have wasted. I
definitely think I would have fully lost my mind had we not jumped it. Like, it feels like, because once we knew what we were making a little bit more and like we had a plan or like songs, then going to the label and being like, oh, can we figure out the budget and like kind of, you know, let's just talk about making this second record, because before that, I think we still would have been doing some Downey stuff. So like, at the time, but so I think the beginning stages of making the record were really, like you said, a knee-jerk reaction where I was like, if we don't do something, I'm going to go insane. Just like politics were crazy. The pandemic is happening. Like, I need to be doing something that felt like the counterbalance to the world.
Makes total sense. And I mean, it's something, you know, you have something to show for after. That is interesting too. So, I mean, yeah, do you feel like, I mean, like with those drums and everything, not being able to have like, you know, actual drums, not like, it kind of sounds like the direction was pushed from circumstance, like sound wise, like the sound of this record, which is interesting because I feel like like it still sounds like No Win, but yeah, I mean, it's a different sounding record in the best way. I really do like the progression on it, but it sounds like that was all from more of circumstance or how you're recording overall, just going, hey, we want to sound like this, like off the
I
get.
think it felt like both. I don't know. Like, I can't remember the moment it happened. Like, I feel like every time I start something with this band, like we try and bounce things back and forth each other. Like, we'll play each other's songs. Like, oh man, what if we made a record like this? Or what if we made a record like that? Like, either we're talking about an era or an aesthetic or like 80s drum sounds. Like, there's something that has to like spark something in us to be like, okay, let's go down this rabbit hole. And I don't remember what came first, whether it was the like not having a drummer and being trapped in the pandemic, or being like, I really want to do something late 90s, early 2000s referential and like all this music that I liked as a kid. I don't know which happened first.
I think we had an idea of like we wanted something light and that felt a little 90s, but we needed we always need to write as a band to a drum beat. So we just found drum beats, kind of like threw them down. And then as we started filling in the instruments, the drum beat really informed what everything started to be.
Yeah.
And then we had the conversation of like, we need to get a drummer. And it's like, do we? Like,
yeah.
It's kind of awesome, you know? So we just kind of like filled in, like, you know, for choruses or whatever, it's like, what external things can we find, like bongos or different kind of like rhythmic things that fill in those parts instead of like having a drummer play directly over the beats that were already there, you know? And it became a whole process of like the rhythms became really kind of unique and fun. And it was sort of unlike what we usually do. So there was a playfulness to it, right? Yeah. There was like a sense of discovery, and there was like, it kind of was funny too.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
it was very,
there's a lot of laughter about what we were doing, which was like a unique experience. Cause I think both of us come from the place of like singer songwriter, like this is my art. It's very meaningful. And we were like, let's you know, let's just try to have fun. We've never tried that in music.
Yeah.
before.
And a lot. Yeah. Let's try to have fun. And a lot of like constantly asking each other, like, are we like, I've compared the record to like learning to breakdance in the 4th grade for the talent show, where like you're in the room with all your friends and you're like, dude, we're so sick. Like, I can't believe the moves we learned and everything. And then the day comes, we have to like do it at the talent show. And you like right before the curtain opens, you're like, oh, everyone's going to hate us. Like, we've been in a vacuum of our own opinions, and that curtain's going to go up and everyone's going to look at me in my Adidas tracksuit and be like, idiot. Like, why did you think you could get away with this? Yeah. It felt like that. Like, we felt really playful. And then it was just like the fear of like, oh, I'm going to have to do this in front of the talent show now.
Well, we didn't really show anybody what we were doing.
No.
We kind of like really like referenced music. And then we like, the one thing I remember is like, is it dumb enough?
Yeah.
Like, we would listen to things we were inspired by and like listen to how simple and kind of goofy and dumb it was. And it's like, are we achieving that? And how do we get even more lighthearted? How do we like, how does the sounds we're using, how do they like, everything became candy, you know? We were throwing candy and sweetness at it, which was really like fun and unlocked a different type of writing and musicianship in both of us, I think, you know?
For sure.
I don't think I'll ever do anything like this like again. You know, it seemed like a product of that moment, you know, which was, it's really interesting and wonderful about that record. And when you listen back to it, like me, when I listen back to it, I'm like, when did we do all this stuff? Like, like there's so many, like there's so much going on, and we can't remember who came up with an idea or who recorded it. It's just like it is, you know?
Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, I think the way you wrote that way, I think worked, even if it was like a way you may not do again. The process seemed to work. And like, also, I am interested in that because, like you both said, I mean, you kind of come more from like the like songwriting or singer aspect or whatever. Like, for that drumming side and programming drums and doing the loops and throwing things in, I mean, do either of you have much of a background in drumming? Or, I mean, was that, and I know Danny, I mean, I know you have the studio and stuff. David, I don't know, like if you do like
David produces in the studio as well too. Like half the gear is his. And
okay, well, do both of you already? I feel like with that position, you might already do some of that. I mean, was any of that new?
We both played drums in bands.
Yeah, we both played drums before with people, and then also like we work with drummers constantly to like help arrange and change parts. So it's like I feel like it's a part of us, but we're neither one of us are great drummers, but we know what drums should do in a song, I think, most of the time.
Yeah.
As producers, I mean, I got to go back to that breakdancing analogy. Do you ever get bands coming into you where they're having that realization that they were all the 4th graders getting ready for the breakdancing, and then they start showing you the music and go, oh, wait a second, maybe this isn't the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I've had that happen with one band. I won't say anything about who they were, but like they came in, you know, and had prepared to record a record with me, and they played a little bit, and I was like, no, like, and in a sweet way. They were really young, and then I ended up making a record with them at a later date. But like like once it was all in the room and mic'd up and playing, I was like, "You guys sure you want to do this? Like, I think we should go home and practice more." And I was like, "Cool, see you guys in a little while. Like, come on back anytime." And like they ended up practicing, coming back, and we made a great record.
That is
interesting. I like going with that idea. Like sometimes band will bring things and you'll be like, ouch,
yeah,
you know, but you'll be like, but the bass is really cool, or like you'll find things to connect with, and we're like, how do you match, like how do we bring everything up to that level of like what the cool thing is doing? And you'll find a way, like, you know, like there's no bad songs, you know, it's just kind of like you can like tweak choices to make it really cool. You just have to find what works with it, you know.
I'd like to go down this route a little bit. I like the production side of things. Like kind of going along with that, I mean, it seems like you would have to, as a producer, maybe learn, like you were saying, like not to be me. You don't want to break someone down and just destroy their work, but I feel like you have to find a way to go, hey, maybe this could be better, or maybe this isn't like the greatest riff of all time, or maybe this or that. I feel like you probably have to find like a producer speak, or a way as a producer to talk and communicate with musicians, as to not just go, this is awful, like you're bad.
Well, I think you're always you and the person you're producing in a perfect world, and usually most of the time you're both trying to get to somewhere neither one of you are. Like the band wants to be at this level, and they're currently at a little bit of a low, like, you know, they're operating how they operate, but they want to reach something more than what they've achieved thus far. And as a producer, you want to meet them up there. So as long as you're not speaking down about where they are, but rather finding what is highest up the mountain from where they are, closest to that peak, and then you focus on that peak, and it's like a triangle. Like you guys come up both sides of the mountain, you want to meet up top. But as soon as you start talking down about where they are, they don't want to climb. They're not motivated to go up anymore. They just feel like crap about themselves. So as long as I think producer speak is just like finding a way to communicate what's positive about where everything is, and how those positive elements can push you up to that place you want to meet at.
That makes sense.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
No,
sorry, it's a little convoluted.
Really no, it does makes sense, because again, you're going to crush someone very early on if you're just like, these songs you've been spending hours on. No good.
I'm sure that's been necessary in the history of music a few times, but like luckily I haven't had to ever. I've never been in a situation where I've just had to straight out be like, "You guys are bad at this. Go home." Like, yeah.
For both of you, I'd like to get into that. Like, I mean, were both of you always into the production recording side of music, or did that come later on? I mean, I'm assuming both you got into music and then the recording and behind the scenes stuff happened. I mean, is that kind of how it worked?
I think it's for both of us. It was like necessity. We're both songwriters and in bands, and I didn't know anybody who recorded something, you know? So I went down and got me one of those 8-tracks, and just like, you know, I got 2 microphones from Radio Shack that were like $5 a piece. And, you know, I figured I'd point it at something, and then, you know, it just started from necessity, and you just become more and more obsessed. You know, I think every band has the one guy who's like, oh, I can record this, or gets into it and kind of pushes the rest of the band, you know, in that sense. It's really rare where you find a band in here and they're like, yeah, we didn't record demos, we don't know how to do any of that stuff. You know, there's always like one guy who's like, oh, I bought this laptop and let's do this thing. And, you know, so I think I was that guy in all my bands for sure, you know. And as things progressed, it was always like, well, I guess I'm going to do it. And then I started doing it more and more, taking myself more seriously. And all of a sudden, here we are.
Pretty much exact same story here. And then also, once you become that guy, all your friends' bands know you're that guy.
But, you know, I guess too, with that, do either of you remember a real transition, like you're talking about, like where then like your friends' bands and all that start knowing you record? Is there like a defining moment or transition for you where you went from recording your own stuff in your own bands to then actually like, oh, I guess I'm going to do this now. Like I'm going to do this for other people and work on other people's stuff.
You literally, like, for me, it was like, you had to say that, like, oh, I do this now.
Yeah.
And then like you put that out in the world and you say like, hey, yeah, you know, when people are like, what do you do? Like, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
And they go, oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
You're an engineer.
Yeah.
and you just do it, and then people know you as that guy. It was really like a weird thing that happened, you know, because I was doing it so much. People like, what do you do? I'm like, I guess I'm an engineer. And then like other people are like, oh, you meet that guy, he's an engineer. I'm like, I guess I am.
It's just like, something. It's like music. Like I don't know the moment I decided to be a musician. It's just like I played guitar, I loved it, never stopped. And same thing. I started recording probably like for the first time maybe 3 years after the first moment I played a guitar. I was already like buying a little 8-track and trying to do stuff. And then it's like, well, now that's just a part of music to me. They've never been separate. Like I personally, I've never made a record. I don't want to misspeak, but I don't think I've ever made a record in any project I've been in with someone else. Like David has made like the only time I've made a record recorded by someone else is in my old band. David made a record, but it was like me and him. He was like at the helm and I was making it with him. But like, I've never like gone to my first record ever. And ever.
We don't speak about
we don't speak of that record. But like everything that I like that I've ever made has been like, I've never like had a producer or like a, you know.
That's interesting. So you are, I mean, I don't know. I feel like some people, do you think there's like, do you think any musician could also be their own producer? Or do you think you have to almost possess something to also be a musician who can record your own stuff, produce your own stuff? You know what I mean by that?
I think you just got to like it. Yeah. Like, I think anyone can if they have an interest in doing it. But I like when people are like, I have no interest in doing that. I fully understand it. Like, it depends on the way you engage with your music and making it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think you have to possess it, but I think if you try it out once and you're like, wow, that was really fun, you can do it. That's all there is to it. And you just stick at it and learn and research and YouTube and message boards. That's what you do. But like, I fully also understand musicians who are like, don't ever sit me at a computer. Like, I don't want to do it. It makes sense to me.
Well, I think for both of us, like in engineering and producing are kind of the same thing for us because they melt together. I think any musician can be a producer.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to be an engineer usually, you know? Yeah. That takes a certain type of person, you know?
For writing music for both of you, you know, getting back to more like the, you know, the songwriting part of it, for both of you, are you people who you feel like you're just constantly writing all the time? Are you more writers where like you'll get that burst of inspiration, maybe you write an entire record in a month and then you just don't write another thing for like, you know, it could be months before you write something else? Where do both of you fall kind of on that spectrum?
I'm the second one. I will say I'm constantly writing ideas. Like my voice memos are full of like a stanza or a verse into a one line of a chorus or just a chord progression, but they'll just sit there for like months.
They're floating around. And then one day it's like, all right, let's reel this in. Let's grab a cup of coffee and see what we got on these notes. And like, you know,
I was going to say, do you hear like later on, maybe like, hey, well, there's this little 30-second thing here, and maybe I can use that and kind of like find a place for them later on somewhere.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of the times we'll write something or like we'll throw down just an idea and then we're like, oh, this is a great chorus. And then later it's like, this is actually a verse. And then we like, so the function of those little notes or moments will change, you know, depending on like, and when you throw things down and you start adding instruments to it, it takes it to another place too, you know. For me, like I get the initial idea, put some things on top of it, and all that sonic information will inform where the song wants to be, or like the lyrics will change because the feeling changes. So they kind of like,
totally,
for me, because I've been doing this for so long, the engineering, the recording, and the writing are all kind of like working together to get to a final destination. Where a lot of people come in and they're like a great songwriter and they're like, this is my song, and you listen to it, you're like, holy crap, that's amazing. Don't do anything to it, you know? But for I don't know, for me, I have to, it's this process along with engineering that gets me to a place, you know, because I rely on sonic so much, you know.
Are you just hearing things in like as you're hearing a song, can you just hear those little,
it's a mood, right? Like
this should be this.
Like people, you know, now people write with like what they call starters, right? Like you'll get like a drum track and it'll, for some reason, it'll speak to you. And you're like, oh, this song wants to be like this, just from like a tone, you know? You can have like just one little beeping or whatever. And you're like, oh, this is taking me somewhere. And you go with it, you know? So it's kind of interesting,
Yeah, and the stuff on this record specifically, like when we were writing it, like I feel like while we were sitting around just with guitars writing, there would even be conversations like, and then I can have like a like there would be sounds in the conversation about how the lyrics are paced or where the pre-chorus goes, and then it does this thing. Like it was part of the writing process. Yeah, it's like part of the writing process to talk about like sounds and like, and then it's gonna do this thing here. You know, it was never just like here's a guitar and a song. You know.
I mean, that's crazy to me because I mean, and people like hear the songs off the album. I think what you just said makes perfect sense because I know the sounds and stuff you're talking about. And it's interesting they come to you in that way because it's not like just a guitar part or like it's not always a musical part per se. It is something kind of, it becomes musical, but it doesn't start as a musical thing per se.
The last single we had is the one where we tuned the sound of the internet going online,
like a 56-bit dial-up modem.
Yeah, so surfing, and then you like we kind of like pitch shifted it so it worked with the song and turned that into a solo, and that was like a section that just had nothing, and it was like, oh, that'd be funny. That'd be funny if, and then all of a sudden when you heard it back, you're like, that's kind of incredible.
Yeah,
And
that was such a cool. That was a David did that like, and he was like, I have an idea, and then like leave the room, come back, and he plays it. And you're like, like it's perfect. Like it's like it's like not a musical thing. It's a sound that people from like the early internet days like I dreaded when I was a kid. It's like you want to go on AOL or like AIM, and you have to hear that like wretched sound, and now it's like a part of the song, and it sounds cool. Yeah.
Oh, and huge credit to you, David, because like because the first time you hear it, I mean, I'm in that right age range too, where the second I heard, I'm like, wait a second, is that? But it's genius. Every time you hear it, it works so well that it's not like a novelty that wears off. You hear it the first time and go, oh my God, it is. And then after
it's a solo.
It is.
It has the timing and the melodic, structure for it to be like any other kind of solo, which is really interesting and fun, but it's familiar, right? Like, like I don't chop it up or anything. That's like literally the internet sound, then timed and then like melodically chopped so it works within the song. You know?
That is amazing.
It's dumb. That's what I'm saying. Like it's like we were like, is it dumb? Yeah, that's dumb. And like, but like really, it feels good, right? It's just based on feeling, and that was it.
Very on brand with I mean, like you were talking about aesthetic and everything earlier too. Very on brand with, I mean, the sound of the album, the aesthetic of everything. I mean, it's what other sound would you pick? That's like that's essential of the era.
Well, that's I like for No One specifically as a project. I feel like aesthetic. I'm like really proud of the aesthetic work, which a lot of the credit goes to Jeff Enzor, who played drums on Downey, co-wrote a lot of this record. He's done like all of our graphic design work. And Francie Chang, who works at Dangerbird, has also done a lot of work for us. But Jeff, like, he's really good at like, I feel like I get this hyper focused idea of like what everything needs to feel like based on the music. And I'm not a good graphic designer, but I feel like I'd have a good idea, and then I could sit down with Jeff and he would take it like not only to where I wanted to go, but then push it a little further into being like, yes, that's like exactly what I wanted. He's like Jeff Enzor, great graphic designer.
It's almost like music production in a different way. Like for you, you're trying to get that idea out, and he's almost like the producer role where he's helping you get that song in your head out.
Yeah.
And that idea, like in your head, you can think of it, but you can't get it out on paper.
Well,
you're trying.
He's doing like a visual representation of what the record feels like, which is so important. And also, like when you see that record cover, it informs you going into the record. You like, you think of that cover when you're listening to it, and they sync up. Like back when I was like record shopping, like in the 90s, you go to a record store, and like the album cover, you're like, I'm gonna buy this. The album cover is so awesome. You're like, the music has to be this rad. Like, and that was the only way you'd find out about music. It was like there was an art correlation, right? Like the music and the art cover, like they moved together. So if you trusted the art of the record, you would trust the music somewhat, or at least be open to it.
Yeah, if you want to convince people you're in like a heavy band, you have to have the most brutal like painted artwork on the front. If you're on to be in like the coolest pop band, you better be using like modern graphic design tech with like bubbly letters. That how'd they even make those on a computer? Like you had to like say what you were.
If you were a singer-songwriter, you had to be like brooding. And,
Rick James just put himself on the cover, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be wild. The art was exactly what you needed it to be.
So this had a big component, like with Jeff's aesthetic. Like I think it prepares people for what they're gonna hear. and it leaves this like visual imprint that's really nice, you know. And it's nice when you feel that as an artist, and you see that, and you're like, yes, you know, instead of like, it's okay, or like it could be moved around, or like this is the best we can get, you know. I feel like Jeff knocked it out of the park in that sense, you know.
He always seems to get us to a place where we're stoked. And then also like Ryan Baxley did the music video for our last single, Surfing, and Alice Baxley, his wife, she's a great photographer, and she shot all the photos. Like, we work with a pretty tight-knit team and who have done both records with us in these roles. So I feel like we all know how to communicate about like where we want to go and how to get there.
That's kind of nice, like to not have to keep starting over either. Like if you're all working together, it's almost like don't fix what's not broken. Don't bring in like different people who may not mesh as well with. Maybe you don't get the same good results.
Yeah.
Well, the communication's really nice. Like if you've known someone for a long time, like when you're working on a project, you're not like, oh, I don't want to step on your toes, but you know, instead you just your friend, you tell your friend like that, it looks whack. I don't know. Fix it. It's weird. You know, it's nice to have those like honest conversations where no one gets their feelings hurt. You're a team working, right? There's no ego involved. Everybody's on the same page all the time, you know?
Totally.
No, that is rad. And yeah, I mean, again, and credit to, again, the aesthetic and all that stuff. I mean, going back to even with the enhanced CD EP that came out earlier this year, like you can almost tell what it sounded like before I listened to it. I'm like, I'm on board without even listening. I'm like, it takes me back.
It's funny. The second you say enhanced CD, we laugh because that's our attention. We thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, we're like, that's funny. Like those don't exist. And like they were such a big deal when I was like, I remember buying an enhanced CD and like rushing home to put it in a CD-ROM drive,
and nothing happened.
All of what I just said makes no sense to anyone under my age. Like none of that sentence. Like this is like the same way like adults feel when Gen Z speaks sometimes. Like when I was Gen Z adults, but like me saying like I bought an enhanced CD and put it in my CD-ROM drive as soon as I got home is like, what words are those? Those aren't words of functioning. But we wanted to make an enhanced CD.
And like even the font is like what enhance it. Like you have it to a T. Like I can't like give enough credit to that.
If you ever see the back of the CD, the back of the CD has like the Real Player logo and the old QuickTime logo, and it's got like an FBI anti-piracy warning that takes up a bottom eighth of it. Like, oh, we did it, dude. It's like it's what it needs to be.
Oh, I do love the dedication, or like I guess that extra mile of, I mean, you know, No Win being a band, but also being like we do care about the look, or we do care about the aesthetic of the like all of it coming together. It's not just like, well, here's a lyric video to go with the single, here's this that. You're actually like thinking it out and putting it all together. Like you obviously give a shit about what you put out and put together. And it shows.
Yeah, totally. Like I want each. I mean, I feel like both records so far have really accomplished creating their own world. Like Downey had a very specific vibe and aesthetic to it, and it harkened to like an older time. I don't know. There's like something that it really did well, and this one was like this retro futurist thing of the late 90s, early 2000s, and it's just like, well, we can't just half commit. Like, let's build a world where this record exists in that space, and like. Because it also serves to kind of explain that space to someone who might not know about it, like a younger person, where it's like, there's like so much there to unpack of like, why is this called this? And like, what is it? And then you Google it, and it's like, there's so much fun, dumb stuff to learn about music in that world.
Oh, and the little references, like, I mean, they could hear Surfing a million times and not get the whole internet dial-up reference.
Yeah,
for sure. Like, wait a second, that's from that? I thought that was a No Win solo.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like a Usual Suspects moment when they drop the mug. They're like, "Oh my god!"
This whole time it was the internet.
It might be like 10 years.
I've been living a lie
on the internet.
You know, I mean, I know, like, you know, still fairly early on in the band's career. You're only 2 albums in, but like, do you think it's gonna be a conscious? And maybe this is weird asking this because I'm basically asking you like the future and stuff, but like, is it almost a thought when you go into a new No Win record that you don't want each No Win like to maybe have some continuity and maybe something there where it's like this makes it No Win, but it almost seems like you want something different for each album, if you get what I'm saying. Like it's
it
a different
planned.
I mean, it was planned to be different. I'll say that much. It wasn't planned to have this aesthetic, but like, yes, I don't know. David told me something a long time ago when he first started recording me about like I was really like self-conscious. I was a lot younger. I was self-conscious about not having a sound. And I forget what words exactly he put in, but he's just like essentially you can't escape that. You're not good enough and not in like a mean way, but like no one is good enough truly to escape sounding like themselves. You're always going to. And then like a band that was always really big for me when I was younger was Bright Eyes. Like I was a big Bright Eyes fan. And I loved how, especially like later Bright Eyes, each record, like I've always described it as like, I like being a fan of a band that kind of leads you rather than follows you. Like I grew up listening to a lot of punk as well. And like in punk, fans often get mad because like, I like the old stuff. They changed. I don't like it anymore. And it was so exciting for me to be a fan of a band where it's like, they're schooling me or like showing me that there's other stuff out there. It's not like I'm not going to them for the same meal over and over again. They're like a chef who's like, oh, I know your palate. I know like you're not, if you like me as a chef, I'm going to make stuff you like, but I'm going to change up the menu every time. Hopefully, like I want it to be exciting and I want to explore other elements of music that I didn't get to last time, you know?
I think it works in the band. I think and I like bands that are like that where, cause you're right, including like in punk and stuff. I mean, go throw a piano or something in there, do something.
You're done, dude.
See how that turns out for you, buddy.
Sing the wrong harmony.
Yeah,
sing a harmony. Yeah, sing a harmony, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Hollywood, huh?
Yeah. There are just genres that are unforgiving in that way. And like I think early on in the band, I mean, because again, you're only 2 albums in, so it's kind of weird asking that question, but like I think it's good to have it set in that way where I feel like going forward, I don't personally, 2 albums in, I don't expect what a no-win, album number 3 would sound like, or even what this album would sound like. Like, I think it's a good thing to be that way from the get-go and not like 5 albums in, you decide, you know what, I'm going to get a little more artsy, or I'm going to do
now that everybody trusts me and counts on me for this thing. It's like, no, let's set it up right now. I'm not going to deliver. Like, I will do what we want to do.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I also don't want to say it's always like, I don't want to commit to like ever being like every album's going to be different in the world. It's like, there's like, every now and then I'll like think about Downey. I'm like, man, there's elements of like indie rock in that way that I didn't get to explore. I still want to. So things might come back and go, but I never want to. I always want to set it up in a way where it's like there shouldn't be an expected album ever. Like you should be free as an artist to do what you want, and you should like hopefully find fans. A dream fan of this band would be like, I can't wait to see what happens next. Like more so than I can't wait for another one of those.
I think establishing that early is what's important. Like early as a band, like just again, like if you're that, if you go in and you listen to a band's first couple records and you can see that like, okay, they changed it up a little each time. Like you can see where they're at each one. I think like it sets you up better. Whereas they were like, I don't know, you were a folk band for 3 albums and then you weren't on album 4. Again, you can't be mad when that kind of stuff happens. So I feel like it works to win.
On a deeper level, like this is a thought occurring to me kind of now, but like it might also be a way to like find a deeper truth of who an artist is, because like oftentimes people are mistaking genre with how the writer writes, right? It's like, oh, like this punk band should always sound like, it's like, no, like who they are is deeper than the genre or deeper than the way they play the song. It's like the way their melodies string together. It's the emotions they convey. It's that stuff to me is what's most important about an artist, regardless of what style they're playing. So if you kind of mix it up all the time, the only consistency for anyone to grab onto is your actual identity, not like the guitar sound or the drum sound. Like none of that stuff informs who you are. It's like, oh, those are tools to express who I am. There's something underneath. And that becomes the only through line, is like us as people making stuff.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, that's so true for artists where they're constantly changing, and they might make a record, but you're like, I hate this record, but I can't wait to see what they do on the next one. They might miss you for one record, and then you get back with them and go like, oh, this is cool, No,
that definitely happens. I mean, and again, I think in some genres they are more forgiving. That well, maybe they'll get it on the next one.
Yeah, Bob Dylan fans, how much forgiveness they have in their heart. Yeah. Like, how many decades of forgiveness.
Yeah, that is true for all the legendary records he has.
Oh man,
they're not all hits.
I'm a big Bob Dylan fan. I'm a big Guided by Voices fan. You can't be a fan of either one of those people without just being like, oh, we don't talk about that stuff. Like, there's like a lot of stuff in there. You're like, nah, it's cool. Miss me with that one, Bob. Like, I'm good.
If you write Bobs. They're both Bobs. I was about to say they're both Bobs. Yeah. I mean, if you write 100 records, they're not all going to be. You can't. I don't think anybody can write 100.
I don't expect them to be.
I was wondering too, because like again, I mean, I've kind of been paying attention to the band for the last. I can't believe Downey, to be honest, came out in 2019, because I still feel like I just discovered your band like a year ago. But you know, obviously the pandemic and stuff, you weren't touring. But has the band toured much since forming? I mean, has the band done any touring in its formation?
Yeah, the year like we like so when we got signed to Dangerburn and we did Downey. 2019 record came out in March. I think we did 5 tours before the shutdown, which was 12 months. Yeah. So when the record came out in 2019, we did 5 tours in a year, and it was like one big national one, like some West Coast ones here and there. We flew to New York and did some East Coast stuff. Like we were really going after it. And then the pandemic hit, and it was being in a band that had just put out its debut record in March, and then getting 12 months to like do your thing and get like people to know that you exist and pay attention to you, and then having it all stop was really difficult. And so, I mean, it was difficult for everyone in the world, but like, so it does feel like that record just came out because we barely got to do anything. And now this one comes out in August, and it's like, kind of feels like a first record. It's like, all right, let's start these engines up again, and like, see if people still care and find out who's still out there for us. Cause like, it really felt like it all went off a cliff there, you know?
That's an interesting point. I mean, because really, and again, it feels like it was yesterday, but I do remember when Downey came out, and like, you're right, it wasn't, you didn't have tons of time to like let the world know about this band on your debut record before you know, everything kind of came down. So that is interesting with that thought of this one. It's obviously not your debut, but in a way, this might be an intro to a lot of people.
I mean, it feels like, I mean, nowadays with like, you know, social media and streaming stats and all this stuff, there's like a constant reminder of like some numerical assertion of how you're not doing what you were yesterday, which is like horrible for musician mental health. But like seeing how it's changed between the first one and now, it's like, yeah, there was like a real big ball rolling on that one after the, like, you know, the early demos I put out in press coverage and stuff. Sorry about that. But yeah, so like, yeah, it just feels like we're starting the machine up again and trying to work. And like, but yeah, we toured on the first one. Our last tour ended, I think, like March 10th of 2020. Like we literally toured into the pandemic, and then it was like over. Like
we were riding the first cases down. Every city we were in, the cases were following us down the West Coast.
We drove out of Seattle to the like NPR in the tour van, just being like, first case of coronavirus confirmed in Seattle. Like when we're on the freeway out, it was just like, oh, this is going to be bad. And then like we got home on the 10th, and on the 13th, it was like, and shut down. Yeah. It was wild.
I am happy that like, I mean, things now on the other end, I mean, you have a great like record, and like you're ready for things. I'm sure at that time before getting ready for writing this one, that is a bummer when you're like putting all that out and it's like bad timing.
Yeah. I mean, but it was the whole world, right? It's like not a singular struggle. Like everyone, no matter what job you had or what you were doing or working on, it was just bizarre to see the whole world go on pause, you know?
Yeah. Do you have any like any plans for touring this year, or you know, just do you think you'll be touring in the future? Like, is that the plan for No Win at least?
I always want to go on tour, but I want to pick the right tours. And like, you know, we're older now, and like I have a kid, I have a family. That's not to say I would tour all the time if it was sustainable and could help out, which a lot of them can. And when they are, I will say yes. And we're in talks for a few right now, but it's all casual, nothing I can like talk about yet. But there's like some offers out there, and once the record's out, I'm excited to start talking about some stuff that we'll do in the next year.
Oh, that's rad. No, I mean, it's good. It sounds like there's more to come for the rest of the year.
I mean, definitely don't plan on stopping or slowing down at any point, if as much as I can, you know what I mean?
No, nice. And I mean, as a fan, that's good news. And also, I mean, the record will be out here by the time this is out, I think a week or two before. But I mean, a new No Win record coming for everyone to check out. And I mean, we'll definitely right now we'll play some songs off that enhanced CD EP. And that's a fun one to say.
Yeah, enhanced CD EP. It was really funny because like I was like putting it on our web store, like the band's web store, to sell it, and I was like enhanced CD EP, and then like I had to put the format because I don't want people to think they're like, I don't want them actually thinking they're buying. So I'm like enhanced CD EP parentheses CD. Like again, it's like it's a CD. That's that because if we do ever press it to like a 7-inch or like a 10-inch, I have to be like enhanced CD on vinyl though. Like that's the actual title. It's really dumb. Again, once again, just dumb.
As a collector though, you got to release that on like every format, and there's just that little tweak on it, like enhanced 8-track, enhanced cassette. You know,
dude, I found someone manufacturing 8 tracks.
Why? What are we waiting for?
Yeah, Light in the Attic is like putting them out, but I found the company who's making them, and I'm just like, oh, I want to do an 8-track so bad. Like no one will play it.
I'll buy one. I don't know if I do an 8-track. I will play it. I'm not saying there's anyone but me. You might be looking at the only person buying this, but
enhanced 8-track. It's like a cassette.
Enhanced we should just release a cassette and call it enhanced 8-track. You can fast forward.
That's the selling point. You need this. What you bought, you can fast forward on this one.
It's enhanced.
It's got 10 songs.
There's money being left on the table here, you guys. There's some real ideas here. I think are going to really just break the ban. I hope you're ready to
anything I've learned about modern marketing is that the dumber you get, the better it seems to work.
Yeah,
it's like. Yeah, if you could just ditch your shame and just do something god awful, people are like, "Oh yeah, this is what we need. Let's buy those." Yeah.
I mean, you guys are amping up for the album cycle. It's time to.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out what our McDonald's order is going to be.
What our Happy Meal is going to be.
The no-win Happy Meal that's going to come out.
Yeah.
You got to put that dignity and self-respect aside for a little while while you promote this.
Ours will come with those old like 90s Flintstone crystal glasses. It's like a throwback. It's world building, man. Go get our 1999 Happy Meal.
You remember those HitClips? You remember those things, little chip things?
Yeah. I honestly looked into like, is there a way to like, to make my own HitClip just to like show it in a video? I couldn't figure it out, but like HitClips were the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, we're talking about dumb shit. I mean, I feel like I gotta put that one on.
Yeah, if I could find a way to make a 1-of-1 no-win HitClip, I will make it.
Yeah,
maybe that
would be insane.
Yeah.
Oh my god, how did we forget
the no-win mini disc?
Yeah.
Oh, colorful too. You get the colorful one. Not like I think I don't know what's been pressed so far, but you got to go back to the pressing plant.
We're trying to convince Dangerbird to only sell our album preloaded on colored iMacs from 99. Like you have to buy the whole CRT screen, and then when you just plug it in and it just plays our record.
Ready for that.
It takes longer for everything to like warm up and upload and stuff than it is to listen to the record. It takes like 30 minutes to boot up.
It's about the journey, not the destination with our record. Yeah.
If we've learned anything, I mean, that was to take it all back to the beginning. I mean, it's just kind of taking what you got. You guys had to get off tour. You didn't know what to do. You wrote a great record. You made, I think, it. But you know, as we close up here, where can people grab the new record? Where can we find No Win online? Like all that good stuff. Where do we go find you now?
So we're on Instagram. I think it's like nowin.la. We're on TikTok. If you search No Win LA, you'll find it. Our website is nowin.la, and then the record is called Dodger Stadium. It'll be out on August 19th, and it'll be streaming everywhere. And you can find it for sale at dangerbirdrecords.com or any online music retailer.
Nice. So yeah, we're gonna play some songs now, which you will hear on Dodger Stadium. But if you can't wait for that, the enhanced CD EP is out now. And these jams you're about to hear are on them. So you can go grab that bad boy. And we'll kick it off actually with the closer off that. And I don't know where it sits on Dodger Stadium, but I love this song. Here is New Year by No Win right here on the Power Chord Hour.